We welcome you to this memorial service for Matthew King. So glad that so many of you could come, and so glad that so many are able to join through technology. We welcome you here also. Our pianist today is James Fowler. The chorister is Michelle Fowle. At this time, I'd like to just express from Bruce and Kathy and also Jackie. They've asked me to express their sincere thanks and gratitude. They're so appreciative of the kindness and the love that has been shown to Matthew and to them at this time, and also through the years that so many were supportive, both with love and kindness and financial support for Matthew, and they've wanted me to pass along their sincere gratitude and appreciation. So thank you, all those that have helped so kindly. We now will be favored to hear a musical song. It's called Nephews, song by Matt's nephews and nieces. The song is I Feel My Savior's Love.
I feel my Savior's love, it all around me. Spirit warms my soul, through everything I see. He knows I will follow him, give all my life to him. I feel my Savior's love, the love he freely gives me. I feel my Savior's love, its gentle grace encircles me, and when I kneel to pray, my heart is filled with peace. He knows I will follow him, give all my life to him. I feel my Savior's love, the love he freely gives me.
At this time, we will hear the life sketch from Aaron King, Matthew's brother, and then following that, we'll have a piano solo by Whitney Sims, Claire de Lune.
Welcome, everybody. So I'd like to say, not here to mourn Matt's life as much as celebrate it. Matthew Dale King was born to Bruce and Kathleen King on May the 11th, 1984 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Matt was the youngest of 5 children. In our family, Matt was the only solo entity. There was mom and dad, there was the girls, usually yelled, the boys, and then all by his lovely, spoiled, well, lovingly, I should say, lovingly spoiled self was Matt, who usually had the run of the place. And somehow his name dropped off the chore chart pretty constantly, which he readily admitted to, but we loved our Matt. With Dad being in the military, that place he had the run of often was changing constantly. About the time he was born, our dad had just received orders to move to West Point, New York, where he would be a Spanish instructor. Of course, he didn't know Spanish yet, so but had served a mission in Brazil and spoke fluent Portuguese. And the Army was confident he could learn Spanish, so they sent us to Madrid, Spain. And he studied at the University of Madrid to qualify to teach at West Point. While we were there, Matt was just a baby. So he did not remember it, but he was still immersed in the culture there. We traveled extensively, seeing the sights. And we even had a Spanish nanny who would talk to him all day in Spanish. And he would respond to her Spanish as much as he would respond to our English. So he was getting that brain developed early. He was pushed in an umbrella stroller most of the time through all the cathedrals, castles, palaces, art museums, all over Spain and even in Portugal, where we had the opportunity to visit. Matt was a joyful and fun baby, loved by family and friends. When we got to New York, we had one memory that sticks out to my parents was for Halloween, he was wrapped up in strips of sheets to be a mummy. And he was so stiff from all the wrappings that he could hardly walk. And then one moment he was there, one moment he wasn't. And what had happened is he actually fell off the porch into the bushes. Next, we moved to Arizona by Sierra Vista at Fort Huachuca for a few months. And Matt got to share a room with us two older boys. I think the girls had their deluxe apartments downstairs. So when Matt was 4, we moved off to Fort Clayton in Panama. And it's on the Pacific side of right next to the Panama Canal. And for the family, this was a tropical paradise. We could, play baseball year round, go swimming every day. The pool, Olympic-sized pool, was free on base. We had a little trail into the jungle in our neighborhood, and we even had a pet parrot, which you can see out there. And we had a nice dog before it started chomping up all the neighbor kids. In fact, it was Matt who was with the neighbor kid in the front yard with the dog that was chained, and he decided to go in for something, and next thing you know, the kid was in the hospital with stitches. But not really Matt's fault. It's just the dog was not too friendly with outsiders, you could say. One of Matt's vivid memories of Panama was when we went to the Atlantic side, where the water was clear and they had coral reefs, and he got to put on a mask and look at the fish and coral. And when he put on his little mask and came up for a few seconds, he screamed with joy. The sight. Unfortunately, our time in Panama was cut short with the invasion of Panama in 1989. So shortly after the invasion, we had to go to our dad's next assignment, which was in Leavenworth, Kansas. And not the funnest place in the world, so we'll move on. Then it was off to Belgium for the next 3 years. And Belgium is where Matt really came into his own. He had amazing school and sports experiences. He had wonderful friends. Matt was the star of his little basketball team. Weren't a lot of points scored, but he was one of the guys that had the ball a lot. He won a lot of medals at track meets. We have him on video. See that boy running around and around that track. His siblings were also very active in sports, so he got to travel much of Europe to watch all of us compete. Living in the heart of Europe, Matt got to experience places few get to see. Germany, France, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Austria, Czechoslovakia, before it was Czech Republic, Switzerland, Italy, Turkey, England, and Scotland. Although just a kid, he soaked it in and remained a lover of the arts and culture. In 1995, Dad retired from the Army, and our family moved to Mesa. Matt finished his elementary school, junior high, and high school. Matt was good at sports. He played football, basketball, baseball, and had a lot of amazing friends. He graduated from Mountain View High School in 2002. Soon after, Matt took interest in me and my career. And I gladly shared my experiences and even took him, when he was serious, to the Army recruiter and made sure he became a radiology technologist through the Army's radiology specialist program. They tried to assign him something else, obviously, and I just shook him off, said, no, he's not interested in that. No. He knows what he wants. So Matt, continuing with the lovingly spoiled, seemed to have it much easier in his training than I did. I had barracks way down the hill and had to be marched up by drill sergeant every day to the academy. And by the time he got in, they had nice 2-man apartments right across from the school. And I was like, wow, nice. Lucky you. So, also, before he had joined the Army, Matt was working as a baggage handler for America West Airlines. And when you join the military and get orders, you get to keep your benefits. So Matt, being Matt, at his whole time he was in training, would fly home every weekend. Which, if you've ever been in the Army, you know that's way a no-no. But he pulled it off. So his reserve unit was a medical hospital unit, and it was full of doctors and nurses, allied health professionals, and he was well liked and served in the reserves for his 6 years, reaching the rank of sergeant. He aced his fitness test and even did one of his training assignments in Germany. Same time, when he had gotten back from the Army Reserves training, he got a job at Gilbert Hospital, where he worked for years, first as an X-ray tech, then cross-training to become a CT tech. And he also went on to get his bachelor's degree in imaging at Thomas Edison University. Matt bought his own house without a cosigner when he was 20 years old. He stayed active in sports, competing in triathlons and in local city league sports. If you knew Matt, you knew he was in incredible shape and he liked to hit the gym, and fitness was a big part of his life. He also learned to play guitar and the piano. He wrote and recorded songs and performed them on open mic events. Matt was a natural gardener and effortlessly produced vegetables, herbs, decorative plants, and flowers, and would share beautiful pictures of them with us. Matt took up photography and would carry his camera everywhere, delighting in getting those great shots and sharing them with all of us. Matt soon decided to get a little yellow lab puppy, and this was Taylor. Taylor and Matt were the best of friends. We found out Matt was a master dog trainer and would amaze us with the tricks he and Taylor would proudly perform. This made Matt an instant star with all the nieces and nephews. Taylor was a constant attraction when he brought her over. Until her death, Taylor and Matt were constant companions. About 11 years ago, Matt went through some tough times. He would get depressed and lose energy. He didn't know why. It affected his relationships and his work and even his finances. Finally, he learned that there was a cyst on his pituitary gland in his brain. Luckily, he got that treated and better times came. He decided to work at two jobs. He had left Gilbert Hospital. Matt was a nature lover, and with his many wonderful friends, became very active in mountain climbing, hiking, camping, exploring, and adventuring. And about 6 years ago, he met the love of his life, Jackie Beavers. They became a dynamic team and were welcomed and loved by each other's families and friends. Jackie became one of the Kings, Matt became one of the Beavers. For some time, Matt had problems with his bowels, but thought it was something minor. We as his family weren't aware. One day, he texted Dad to say Jackie was driving him to the ER. Mom and Dad were there as soon as they could. We learned that Matt had advanced rectal cancer and that had to operate immediately to save his life, or his colon could burst. This was a complete life changer for Matt, his family, and his friends. From that moment, he had numerous hospital stays, multiple surgeries, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, dialysis, and more. He bravely endured constant pain and digestion problems. He had difficulty sleeping. He had months of unpleasant colonoscopy and ileostomy bags. Through all of this, there was one thing constant in his life. That was Jackie. She was his nurse, his confidant, and companion through it all. She showed unparalleled, unconditional love and devotion. Jackie was burdened yet upbeat. She always looked for opportunity to get him out and about. They would take little trips to nature and to family. Last summer, even though he was in pain, he fulfilled a dream to take Jackie up to visit us in Alaska. We got to go to the beach, we got to go to the woods, we got to go to hike around a nice, pretty lake there with old growth forest. It was a little bit cold for him up there. We had a wet summer, but he was constantly smiling, and it was great. Got to catch some fish, got to go out on the boat. And unfortunately, during the last few months, Matt's health decline accelerated. In his 3-year cancer trip, he developed cancer in his liver and lungs. He had leukemia twice, and the cancer really began to take its toll after Thanksgiving. because of COVID, he and Jackie felt very isolated, and family and friends could visit, but only briefly, and had to be kept at their distance. Finally, medical options were gone, and Matt's body started shutting down. But in the end, it was fast and merciful. Hospice took care of his pain, and prayers were answered. He got to come home and be comfortable. Jackie, his family, and a few friends were able to spend precious moments of intimacy and reflection with Matt. He peacefully passed away less than 12 hours after leaving the hospital. He was comfortable in his own room with his Jackie by his side. In summary, Matt lived large. Adventure was his currency, and he was rich with it. He had a lust for life, for nature, and all things cultural. He was an amazing son, brother, uncle, cousin, and friend. He was intelligent and talented, a photographer, a musician, an outdoorsman, an athlete, a horticulturalist, a stand-up comedian, maybe even a sit-down comedian, and much more. He went way too soon for all of us. We miss him, but he shaped our lives. He was open with his cancer journey through the ups and downs. We all witnessed his courage to fight, and ultimately his strength and courage when his end approached. Our heartfelt thanks to all those who shared their life in any way with our Matt. We acknowledge there are many watching us on Zoom. We appreciate and love all of you. All of the Kings want to express our love and appreciation to Jackie and her wonderful family. Thank you for sharing this moment to celebrate his life.
We'll have poetry reading by Debra, Kudelka-Beavers. And then following the poetry, Nathan King, Matt's brother, will share some thoughts. And we'll go to that.
It is truly an honor for me to be here with all of you. In 1988, I sat in the same seat that Jackie's sitting in right now, remembering a man who left this world way too soon. And at his service, my mom and dad read 2 poems. And these poems have always stayed with me and have given me comfort. And I just knew I had to share these with you today. The first one my mom read, and the second one my father read. The first poem is called The Measure of a Man, and the author is unknown. Not how did he die, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? These are the units of measure of worth of a man as a man, regardless of birth. Not what was his station, but had he a heart? And how did he play his God-given part? Was he ever ready with a word of good cheer to bring back a smile and banish a tear? Not what was his church, not what was his creed, but had he befriended those really in need? Not what did the sketch in the newspapers say, but how many were sorry when he passed away? The next one is called Should You Go First, and it's by A.K. Roswell. Should you go first and I remain to walk the road alone, I'll live in memory's garden, dear, with happy days we've known. In spring I'll wait for roses red, when fades the lily blue. In early fall, when brown leaves call, I'll catch a glimpse of you. Should you go first and I remain, for battles to be fought, each thing you've touched along the way will be a hallowed spot. I'll hear your voice, I'll see your smile. I'll hear your voice. I'll hear your voice, I'll see your smile. Though blindly I may grope, the memory of your helping hand will buoy me on with hope. Should you go first and I remain to finish with the scroll, no lengthening shadows shall creep in to make this life seem droll. We've known so much happiness. We've had our cup of joy. The memory is one gift of God that death cannot destroy. Should you go first and I remain, one thing I'll have you do, walk slowly down that long, long path, for soon I'll follow you. I'll want to know each step you take, that I may walk the same. For someday down that lonely road, you'll hear me call your name. And this last poem is one that I wrote. I dabble in a thing called scripture poetry, and each line in this poem is an actual line from a scripture, and it's called My Eternal Family. I had beheld a vision that looketh forth as the morning, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, the promise that he has promised us, our generations of the heaven. In thee have they set light by father and mother. The same is my brother and my sister. Look not upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth its color in the cup. Will remember love more than wine. Ye will teach them to love one another. I talk to you concerning these things. For love is of God, set his heart upon man, if he gather unto himself his spirit and his breath. Listen unto them and give heed this dream which I have dreamed. Because thou hast been my help, therefore in the shadow of thy wings will I rejoice. A light that is endless, that can never be darkened, of whom the whole family in heaven and earth is named. Ah, I am warm. I have seen the fire. Thou hast put gladness in my heart. A soft tongue breaketh, who was from the fountain of the world, foundation of the world. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth in singing. In a state of happiness shall seal on earth, shall be sealed in heaven. In closing, Jackie has asked me to speak on her behalf, and she wants you all to know that Matt made her a better person. And James and I can say that's true. But I can also say that Matt brought joy to all of us, and the King family did an amazing thing by welcoming our daughter into this beautiful family. And there is no doubt in our minds that Matt loved her unconditionally, and that she the same for him. A man who will sing a love song to Jackie on Facebook is pretty amazing. But we want to just thank you all, and we will always, always have Matt in our family as well. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
First, I want to thank everyone for overwhelming outpouring of love and support that we have received. All of us have received so many texts, posts, calls, messages, sharing their thoughts and love and support. It's really made us feel a lot of peace and love during this difficult time. This morning, I ran a marathon in Yuma. I ran with Matt. It was his first, and I had this pinned to my shirt. And of course, because I had Matt with me, it was one of the most difficult struggles with a lot of suffering. Because of course, anything with him has to be something where you grind it out, you push hard, push through. I had a lot of close moments with him on this marathon. And I heard his thoughts. And of course, I'm sitting there struggling, only at like mile 8. And I felt him running with me. And I thought, what do you think your first marathon? And this thought came to my head of like, it's not that tough. Which is like exactly what Matt would have said. And mile 13, I got passed by a guy, and I was trying to get in the top 3, and I was in 5th place at that point. And so for the last half, I was back and forth with this guy. We passed the 3rd place guy, so it was down to me and him for 3rd place. And we came up to that last mile. I heard Matt again. He said, "Show him that Nathan King kick," which is something he would say, and I felt him push me, and we were able to get that 3rd place. I say we because it was with him. It's just one of the many miracles we've had this week. And before I get into memories, I just want to talk about a little bit of those miracles. Last Monday, I was sensing that the end was coming soon. I wanted to do something for him, but he couldn't take any more food, and it wasn't doing no good. I couldn't spend a lot of time with him. So I just had a thought to message a musical artist that we both enjoy, that we both discovered in New York City, 2009, that we both enjoyed following. And Sam Cohen, the lead singer, was more than gracious enough in his response and was willing to set up a time for them to play to Matt. And he said, I'd never dream of taking any money. I'll speak to him as long as you want. I'll do it ASAP. And not only that, he contacted me and said, the original bassist and other guitarists are in as well. They're all going to be there. Tell me his favorite songs. We haven't played those songs in a while. We'll practice. We'll be ready. And we did it Saturday. One more day later, it wouldn't have happened. Annie was pregnant with twins. She's the bassist of the band. 36 weeks pregnant, and did this for Matt. Today she had her twin boys. In a week, 1 life lost and 2 lives given represents the giving nature of our Father in heaven. It was one of the best memories I've ever had with Matt. And I'm eternally grateful to them for doing that for him. Shortly after that, he was rushed to the emergency room. He wasn't eating or sleeping. And they found a bowel obstruction. And when they attempted surgery, there was too much cancer there. I received a text that he was fading fast, and my parents were rushing to the hospital. And it was late. I rushed there to hopefully get in. And another miracle is they let us all 4 in when they were saying no visitors at the time. And I got to talk to my brother. He got to make some calls to his other siblings. We weren't sure if he'd get out of the hospital, which makes it the next miracle, able to come home, be comfortable at home. And then the miracle of all his siblings making it there to visit with him. I'll never forget the moment that Aaron, the last sibling, came. Aaron has a huge heart, but he's not known for being a touchy-feely member of the family. And he dove onto Matt with his tears, just smothering him with love, just representing the love we have for Matt. And then for my children to be able to say goodbye and lay next to him, cuddle him. And the last miracle, that night, for some reason, I didn't turn on my ringer. I didn't think about it. My family tried calling me. And Katie just happened to see a light flash on her phone. No ringer on, and answered it. And it was Emily letting me know that Matt had passed. And I was able to go there at 1 a.m. and walk into the room and sobbing like a baby, be surrounded by my brothers and sisters and my parents and my brother holding me. I'll always remember that. And that 3 hours we spent just sitting with Matt, talking about what he meant to us. Another miracle is you guys and the people also who helped decorate this building, present the food, the donations that allowed to cover these expenses and to cover family coming in, our nieces and nephews who wouldn't have been able to make it. So I want to talk a little bit about memories. Most of you know him as Matt. In our family, know him as Matty, Mateo, Moop, Butterball, Fat Boy, that's P-H-A-T, Uncle Map, and Pokey Pup. He was the baby of the family, adored by all of his siblings. I know that a lot of us find our siblings annoying, the younger ones. That was never the case with Matt. We didn't mind him tagging along. We loved it sometimes. He was just a cool little guy. He just had the sharpest wit, so easygoing. Emily wanted to say that she always enjoyed having Uncle Matt as her little buddy, or her brother Matt, little buddy. He was always willing to do whatever we asked him to do, which was the fun part about having a little brother. Aaron and I had paper routes in Kansas, and we paid Matt and Emily $10 a month to roll and bag over 120 newspapers every day. He never complained about the job that probably netted him about 20 cents an hour. I remember playing football with him, Aaron and Emily, in the backyard in Belgium, and I told him to go rush and block Aaron's punt. He enthusiastically charged in, and he blocked that punt with his face. Once we found out he was not seriously hurt, we just laughed and laughed. Wherever Matt was, he often brought smiles and laughter. Matt was a bit of a dreamer. He wasn't always aware of his surroundings. I think talking to my brothers and sisters and parents, we all have stories where we saved Matt from certain death. When we were in Belgium, the bus stop was across the street that had incoming traffic that came around a curve where you couldn't see them until the last second. I was on the sidewalk when Matt bolted from the house and was just running off the curb when I was able to grab him, just as a car came zooming past and I was able to pull him backwards. I'd never been so mad at him. I'd never been so relieved. Aaron has a memory of him in Panama. It's the first time he ever called 911. So he gave Matt some experience, or gave Aaron some experience in dealing with 911. And it's because Matt cut himself badly when he tried to cut an apple. He was bleeding, and Aaron couldn't stop it. So mom and dad weren't home. So Aaron got that practice. They sent an ambulance and a fire truck. And he was a bit embarrassed when the guy said, "This is it?" He did need a couple stitches. Probably the thing that Matt's most well known for in our family is being the best uncle in the world. He adored all his nieces and nephews, and they wore him out every time he saw them. The kids especially liked being thrown in the air by Uncle Matt. His enthusiasm for the sport was dampened in Connecticut when he threw Maddie into a moving ceiling fan on her 2-year-old birthday. She's fine. I have this memory from Kim she wanted to share. She said, I really struggled to know where to start to talk about my 36 years with Matt. I turned 9 right after he was born, and I loved being old enough to help take care of him. I remember having him sit on my lap at church so I could mother him and take care of him. He was such a happy little baby, and the kid loved everyone. He was the most curious kid. I just remember him asking Mom so many questions about anything and everything, and she would just tell him she didn't know. He was 4 and playing all these math computer games, and I was amazed at how he was a computer whiz already, and computers were barely a thing still. He was always looking at everything around him, which is something he continued to do his whole life. At the time, it drove me nuts. I have distinct memories of walking home from playing at different places and turning around so many times to see him way back and yelling at him to hurry up. I got into high school and was more worried about being with my friends and headed off to college when he was only 9 years old. We didn't spend a lot of time together besides family events and trips. We had fun on those, though. Not many kids get to travel the world with their siblings, like camping off the coast of England, freezing in Prague, hanging out by the Colosseum, and so much more. It was always fun to see him when I came home for the holidays and events. He even came to hang out with me in Vegas a couple times when I lived there, and we had lots of fun. We had long talks on the phone where we didn't always agree on things, but I was glad he would still talk to me about his feelings. My time with Matt became even more fun once I had kids. Uncle Map, my boys called him. Oh, how they loved Uncle Map. From 2013 to 2017, we lived in Arizona, and I'm so glad my kids got to spend more time with him on zoo trips, pool trips, playground fun, or just at mom and dad's. He was even a photographer for my baby girl's newborn pics. All of my favorite candids of my kids over the years were pictures Matt took of them. He captured all their real expressions. Even when he started getting sick and he was tired, he would still let them climb all over him and spend time with him when it wasn't always comfortable for him. He fought his battle with all he had. I often wish I could take some pain from him. It was so hard to watch him suffer so much pain. I will miss him so much, but I am so relieved he can finally just rest from all that. Love you, Maddie, my eternal baby brother. You know, I don't believe in living a life with regrets because we're able to learn so much from our mistakes. But man, I really wish I had a chance to go with him on one of his ventures in the outdoors and the beautiful places he went, because I'm sure most of our family would have loved to. Matt experienced more things than a lot of people do in a lifetime. Matt didn't live to work, he worked to live. And speaking with Jackie's mom, Debra, shortly after he passed, she remarked how he would work the hours he needed just in order enough to go on the adventures that he and Jackie planned. I remember talking to him about some of the difficulties in our previous relationships until we were lucky to find Jackie and Katie and the healing that they did to his wounds. Jackie, Matt only had wonderful things to ever say about you, and I'm so grateful for what you did for him and for our family. You know, Matt and I always had different thoughts and beliefs about religion. We never let it get in the way of our relationship. We always had a lot of spirited and respectful conversations. However, despite my respect for him to have his own beliefs, I really hope that I was right and you're here with me today. I love you, Matt.
actually, they take it off the casket and give it to the mother or the wife. They'll give it to Jackie.
On behalf of the President of the United States Army, and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for Love's honorable and faithful service.
This concludes our ceremony. Thank you all for attending.